Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Clone Zone, episode 9. We're talking about episode 9 of The Bad Batch today. Bounty Lost was the title. Um, right when we finished it, I was just like, another banger. It's so good. This series has been just, I think, great, flawless, even. Like, there hasn't been a bad episode yet. Today, to discuss it with us is Sal from Rogue Rebels podcast. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's like, what do I love doing? Star Wars and talking about it and making my family watch it and then talking about it again. And let's talk about it with other people too.
Well, you're all known for your Star Wars Rebels cosplay. Have you started any Bad Batch cosplays since the series began?
Okay, so no. Short answer, no. Long answer, like I used to work a lot with Kevin Weir, who he basically runs Imperial Surplus, which makes all the clones. Like, I'm sure there are other makers, but chances are if you see a clone out there, like it's one of his. And he also he does ARCs, he does Rex, he does Cody, he does all the attachment for commanders, he does Wolf helmets and phase 1, phase 2, movie realistic style. So like if it's been on the Clone Wars, he's done it. Now, way back when the Clone Wars was like canceled and they like were like, hey, here's like some things that would have been. Look, here's a picture of Dark Disciple Voss. And I was like, file that away. And here's like would have been the Bad Batch. And they gave us designs. And they looked like really cool. Like the Bad Batch, obviously, now that we can see it, looks really cool. And he's always like, so like, how about like would you want to do an armored costume? And I'm like, nah, I like Jedi. And he's like, well, what if you were going to do like a bad guy? What would you do? And I'm like, maybe Hondo, does he count? And he's like, armor, dude, like armor. And when the Bad Batch designs, I was like, I might be able to pull off a hunter. Like, he looks cool. He's got a bandana. He's 80. You know?
That would be cool to like paint half your face with like the skull.
Yeah, that's like the dopest part. I don't like the clean shaven. Like, I look at everything and then I'm like, ooh, I could pull off maybe a Cantum Psi, but then I'm like, oh, then I gotta like grow chops somehow and then shave it. And then if I want to do Kanan, I gotta grow it real fast. But then if I want to do season 1 Kanan, I gotta like shave all this. I'd leave this. Like, y'all, cosplaying is no joke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully, I'm really hopeful that Quinlan Voss makes an appearance in this series, and then you're set.
I would love that. Yeah, I will refer you to my piece on theroguerebels.com, why Quinlan Voss should be part of the Bad Batch.
Boom.
Well, we've already started. If you haven't seen the show before, what we're going to do for 20 or 30 minutes, just to discuss the episode among ourselves, our thoughts, and we'll just run through it. And then we're going to take some chat questions for half an hour. We'll see. If you want to go ahead and get your questions into the queue, you can leave a super chat. But yeah, let's just dive in. What are your thoughts on the series as a whole so far, Sal?
I'm loving it. Like, obviously, Rebels is a very special place in my heart, and I don't think that's going to move anytime soon. But like the quality of storytelling in Star Wars animation and everywhere, but like particularly in animation, man, it seems to just really like they have an idea and they run with it, and it's like fulfilling without like sometimes I think like some of the bigger things maybe like especially with the fandom, like sometimes it's like crushed under the weight of everybody's expectations or something, and like the show is fine or the movie's great, but everybody was like, well, I wanted this or I wanted that. And I feel like animation is big enough to be awesome and do all these things, but also kind of like sneaks under everybody going like, well, it should have been blah 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 and it should have been this. Anyway, the Bad Batch is great and I love it, and it's family stories, which like makes Star Wars great. See example A, Rebels.
I keep thinking, and you just touched on this about just how well planned out this series seems to be, how deliberate it feels. Like I was surprised that Omega got away from Cad Bane in this episode. I thought she was going to be captured for a while and we'd be dealing with this for 2 or 3 episodes, but the fact that she got away quickly but believably, like they did it really well, where they defied my expectations and I was like, this was great.
Yeah.
I love the way they do that.
I kind of felt the same way. I was like, well, I guess we have to go to Camino, right? That's the only way. They got to go get her because she's just going to be caught. And Axel said something like, well, why don't you just, and busts away, like busts in Ezra. And I was like, she could be like, Jabba the Hutt. Or whatever.
Jabba.
Jabba.
I mean, like, yeah, who would have thought that we would go to Sky Camino instead? Like, there's no way we could have predicted that.
Like, and busted scary Sky Camino. Like,
Yeah.
Sky Camino out of a Metroid game or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
I was expecting zombies to pop out somewhere along the way. That place was creepy.
Like, just seeing busted things in Star Wars, it's not supposed to be cool, but it's really cool. And I don't know how else to, like, I think that Force Awakens thing got us all being like, it's a busted Star Destroyer. Look at it, it's a busted AT-AT. But now I'm like, oh, it's a busted, like, Republic era Star Destroyer, like, the past episodes. We're going to Braca. I was there in Jedi Fallen Order when it was raining. Now it's sunny. Fun things like that.
I'm a huge sucker for ruins and busted things, but it always gets me excited to see those things like in their prime. So now obviously I'm very like, I want to know what Camino was up to whenever they were on this planet. Why did they abandon it? Why did they just leave creepy unfinished clones in those tubes? Why did they get away so quickly?
Oh yeah, creepy tube creatures, Caminoans, things, bodies.
I'm already seeing people like wondering, is there like some Snoke connection or not? And we're going to talk about this in our Q&A tomorrow. Yeah. But yeah, like it's just this, the creepy green tubes is like everyone starts going Snoke, and I doubt it, but I'd love to hear what you think.
I don't know. Like I sometimes am like, not everything has to connect to the one thing you want it to connect to. Like that was just a hand in a jar. It might not even be Luke's hand. Everybody's just running with it. They never said it was Luke's hand. It was just a hand, and all of us went, oh, But that's what happens when I read a comic book. So I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I read a comic book, and now I'm excited about a hand for no reason.
Your brain goes, I know who lost a hand.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It has to be Luke's hand. They wouldn't show us that if
Look,
it were
let me go through
anyone
my
else's
list
hand.
of unaccounted hands for. It could be anybody. It could be like Ellen. No, not it could be that could be a Claudite hand for all you know.
It's one of Dooku's hands.
Yeah,
We'll never see that coming.
Oh no!
I just saved the important part. I lost the rest.
Yeah,
we didn't need all that.
I saw this in the chat already, and thanks for the super chat there, Star Wars 345 paper, just because this is something I wanted to talk about is R.I.P. Ton We. We got a lot of confirmation of some things this episode, and one of them was that, Nala Se is working against the Kaminoans, and she's like trying to undermine Lama Su to the point where she got another Kaminoan killed. Like I assume told Fennec Shand, like, kill her, keep Omega safe.
Right.
Thoughts?
That's like, it was unexpectedly brutal because Axel also does Little Boba. Like, well, not anymore. He outgrew it. But he used to do Little Boba. So I was like, look, like it's Ton We. And he's like, huh? And I was like, Dead Ton We's here. And he's like, oh, yeah. Like, and then like 5 minutes later, we're like, oh, no. Like, but yeah, that was unexpectedly savage. I was like, what a nice reunion. Oh no. Well, can't wait for the Ton We book. Hope we get to fill in that gap. Yeah, now I know Ton We's whole story.
I feel like Ton We was, I don't know, she seemed really nice and sweet in episode 2, but like she was going to like pay Cad Bane, and I was kind of like, oh man, she's just as savage as the rest of them. But I was also sad when she got killed.
It was also a little bit cool to see because she had like the same like episode 2 look. So it was cool to see her next to who is the one right now, Nala Se. And like see the familiar Kaminoan that we've seen for 20 years, and then the other one, and be like, oh, look at their fashion. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Customize, I guess.
What do we think Nala Se's goals are outside of just protecting Omega? Or maybe that is it. I don't know.
Like, I don't know if there's much ulterior past it. because like the only things that we kind of know is like, what was Omega? Like a medical assistant, right? So maybe like they actually did have sort of a relation, like she knows her and maybe she is her friend and maybe she's simply just looking out for her and that's all it is. Or maybe she's like, I am going to build a Snoke out of this child and I need her protected at all times. Also bring me a Grogu, but not till another 20 years.
Oh man, what if Nala Se's got like an even darker agenda?
Oh man, I hope not. Like I hadn't considered that, but now you're saying it.
Okay,
like,
it's like the Infinity Gauntlet of pieces. She needs like the Omega, and then like a Grogu, and then a Luke hand in a jar, and then what? I don't know, like a Claudite hand.
Sure.
A Dooku head. I
mean, that's people were starting to say when the hand in the jar appeared in the Vader comics. People were like, "Oh yeah, maybe Snoke has some of Luke's DNA." And I was like, that just feels too Dragon Ball Z to me, the Cell Saga, where it's like, I took DNA from all the best fighters in the galaxy and made this thing. And like, it does sound a lot like that, what you're proposing.
Like, and it's sometimes with Star Wars, it's hard to explain how far too far is. Because if we explain some of the Star Wars stuff that happened, you're like, that sounds dumb. But then like when you see it happen, you're like, oh no, that was fine. That was cool. And then someone were like, they're not going to do that. Like, remember like 3 or 4 years ago, we were like, Dark Empire. Am I right, guys? Remember that crazy comic? And now you're like, oh, I mean, they kind of just did that crazy comic. And nobody's going to say, I'm not going to say anything, I guess. It's not bad. It worked out.
Yeah, as far as Nala Se, like her message to Fennec was basically like, as long as she doesn't get back to Lama Su, like Lama Su wants her back there, dead or alive. He just wants her there for the DNA. It sounds like. Yeah.
This also sort of it feels exactly like Mandalorian in a way. Everybody was supposed to bring Grogu in alive except IG-11, and we still don't know who told IG-11 to kill that baby.
That's a good point. Part of me wonders if it's Lama Su. No, not Lama Su or Nala Se or
the Gauntlet. Yeah. Well, we know it's not Tan Wee.
Yeah. That's some fun headcanon for now. I really am on Team Fennec now. I mean, like I like Fennec Shand as a character already, but now seeing that she is, I think working to protect Omega, I'm kind of like, all right, Bad Batch, team up with her, and you can protect Omega together.
Interesting. I see where you're going. I like Fennec, and I also got to the part where like as soon as she's hiding and their Cad Bane starts walking around, I was like, she hand to hand, Cad Bane. You might be outmatched here. Axel loves Cad Bane, so my son is now like, oh no, why did she like? And she gets mad every time he throws. My son gets personally offended when Cad Bane's hat comes off.
Oh.
So he's like, then now he just looks like a lame bald guy, like or something, like. And I'm like, he's like, it's only the hat that makes him look cool. So Fennec beat him up, and now he's like, I used to love Fennec. And I'm like, hey, dude, she took out your boy, man. Like,
I felt it was a pretty even fight.
Yeah, it wasn't as overwhelming as it could have been, but I think he definitely lost. If I had to count, if I were doing scorecards, I would have put Fennec 1, Cad 0.
I mean, I would agree.
I was gonna say, I love seeing her fight as her animated self because it's so similar to what we saw in The Mandalorian, just like Ming-Na Wen's fighting style.
Right.
It's like it's so similar, and like the way she just kind of like tucks and rolls every so often. I'm like, this is perfect.
And it's like sharp
kicks and
it's like sharp style and move. Like at the one point when she like grabs his arm, cracks it, and then like twists him over, and you're like, oh, or at least I would. Don't watch this episode with me, guys. Oh!
I loved all the kicking she was doing. Like Cad Bane threw a thermal detonator at her, and she kicked it out the window. And then they kept putting Toto in peril, and I'm like, he's a bad guy. He's not on the side of good, at least for now. But I still get scared every time like they throw a bomb at him. Like, don't blow him up again. Come on.
He knocked the bow out of Omega's hand, so I'm like, throw him out the window. Like I'm like, kill Toto right now. And Axel's like, but he's so loyal and he's so kind. How can you hate Toto? And I'm like, I will rip his other leg off and beat him with it. Like, you cannot harm Omega.
Seth Green does such a good job as that character. He's funny, but you kind of like, I know deep down, like in my head, I'm like, he's a bad droid. Mm-hmm. But I want him to be okay. And I was hopeful that this episode he would like come to see how poorly Cad Bane treats him. But I'm willing to wait on that.
Yeah,
I do hope he comes around.
He wasn't created bad though. Cad Bane, I think, made him bad.
Fair.
I agree. And I just want Toto to realize that and be like, you know who's a real friend? Omega. She was nice to me, except for when she knocked me out.
I really thought for a second when like she was gonna fix his leg that like he was gonna help her and like team up with her, but no. He's just like Mr. Bane this and Mr. Bane that.
Mr. Bane! I forgot about Mr. Bane.
He's got Stockholm syndrome or whatever they call it in Star Wars.
Stock droid syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so what have we not talked about yet? We haven't really talked about Bane other than your son's enjoyment of him. Yeah. So people pointed out that he has that plate on his head. And so people were like, I also think it's likely that Boba Fett scene where he and Boba Fett have a shootout probably happened. Mm-hmm. That so they both shot each other in the head, and now Cad Bane needs a metal plate where he got shot.
Okay.
Because that's how Star Wars works. You get shot in the stomach, robot stomach. Shot in the head, you're fine.
Robo tummy, I forgot,
He like headbutted Fennec in the head too, like specifically with that area. Yeah. So big metal plate. Coming in
shoot handy. Him in the head, it only makes him stronger.
If you shoot me in, I can't do his voice. I will become more powerful than you can possibly. That's like the one Star Wars voice that I can't do. Like, he's got such a cool voice, and every time I'm like talking about him, I'm like, oh, and then he walks up and he's like, sorry, little lady, but I can't do it.
That's people have been throwing around the idea that could he show up in the Book of Boba Fett? Can we see live action Cad Bane? And I'm like, do it, yes, because to me, that's just the easiest transition when it's a full-on face of makeup or a mask or whatever, and you just get Corey Burton to keep doing the voice. It's perfect.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Didn't even think about that.
Let me ask you guys this, though. So obviously he's mostly in this for the money, and Lama Su tells him, like, dead or alive, bring Omega to me. And he is like, I have her alive. I expect a bonus for that. But when he goes and gets her back, he says, you're lucky they want you alive. Was that him being like, I don't want to kill a kid right now? Or was that him like, I want that bonus?
I mean, if I had to pick, I would say column B.
I think it's the bonus as well. Like they talked about when they were introducing Cad Bane to the Clone Wars, that the idea behind him is that he's supposed to show that, the bounty hunters are cool and badass and all, but they're bad. They are bad people. Cad Bane's not supposed to be a good person. Mm-hmm. I mean, we like him because he's a cool gunslinger and all, but like, don't model yourself after him. That kind of thing.
Do not idolize this person. I think like it could be a little bit because like in the previous episode he's like, sorry little lady, he like so he doesn't like want to kill her, but like, man, it would make things easier. But I'd also lose out on that bonus. I'm in a pickle.
I mean, that people can't escape.
Like if he was really like, it ain't worth this bonus. Like, like what's that, like Lilo and Stitch? He's like 90% bad. There's that little it's like, I could just stun her again, I guess.
Yeah. Did anyone else like have a moment where you were like, what's happening when Cad Bane fell? And I forgot he had those boot rockets, and I was like, is he falling to his death right now?
Oh, I was waiting for him to bust those out the whole time.
I forgot briefly. I was like, oh no, totally how's he gonna? Oh yeah, he's got rocket boots. He's fine.
I've studied him extensively, particularly his fight with Quinlan Voss on Teth in the episode A Hunt for Zero. So like, I know Cad Bane's fighting style and Toto stealing lightsabers and all that. So I was waiting for him to bust it. I was waiting for him to use it on Fennec. I thought he was gonna charge her from super far away or something cool like that.
I did like the way he kind of boosted back up and then kind of like flopped over the rail because he was all tied up.
And he puts like one foot up to boost him like down on the other side of the rail. I caught that and I was like, that's Iron Man good, y'all. Like that was cool.
That's just so many good little details.
Yeah.
Say what's up to Charlie in the chat. From Imperial Senate Podcast has a question. Does today's reveal mean Omega is technically the oldest member of the batch? I think she probably is. Because
she doesn't have the growth acceleration. So
I don't think the Bad Batch are first generation clones.
Yeah.
And I assume that she is.
I was listening to Jonah Marie talk a little bit about how she thought that the Bad Batch was like kind of like failed like prototypes, but I was like, I think they were like genetically mutated for their whatever purpose, right? Like to enhance their skills to make this special squad.
That still hasn't really been answered whether or not they were purposeful. I get the sense that they are. I keep going back and forth on it.
Well, but they say the thing like, well, they've been genetically mutated for desirable mutations or something like. So it sounds not like an accident or a mistake. It sounds more like let's make a sniper guy.
Or had a lot of mutated clones over the years, and most of the mutations are not desirable, and they just toss those.
Right.
I mean, I feel like what we're seeing happen to Crosshair, like they keep messing with his chip to make him, do whatever they want. So I feel like that means that the Bad Batch, each one was created specifically with that enhancement. Like I feel like that was them tinkering with the chips and just like the DNA and their specifications. But maybe we'll see.
Oh no, over here. What she said. Yes, that.
I don't know. I meant to ask earlier, how are your kids enjoying the series?
They're loving it. Lizzie's in college, so like Lizzie's far away. Like, where everybody's like, "Hey, I've seen you in those pictures with those little kids." Like they're big now. Like when we did that Batu thing for Disneyland, I knew I think this is the last thing that anybody's gonna hit us up because these kids are getting big. And then we were like shooting it. They were like, "Okay, can the family stand together?" And then the family stood together, and they were like, "Can we get apple boxes for mom and dad?" And I was like, "Because they're like almost as tall as us, but we could look like a family." They were like, "Whoop." Nice. They gave us little apple boxes to stand on. So, spoilers for a Disney commercial. But
this is off topic. But what is it like cosplaying with kids? Because like they keep on growing, you have to keep updating the costume. Because like I just had this image of like your kids wearing the same cosplays from when they were little, just like busting out of them. The sleeves only come to here.
Like that's what it is. Like. And they grow so fast, and they come in like waves. So like Lizzie will outgrow something, and then like I had to she ended up because originally my wife was Sabine. Like when we sort of all mapped out the rebels, my wife has like short hair and she likes drawing, and she was like, "I want to be Sabine." And then like once we read A New Dawn, we were like, "Well, this can't be good. Like we should probably switch this before then." And then like it took us a while. By the time season 2 rolled around, we switched up. We had because like we couldn't throw my wife in the little kid's costume, but we threw a little bit of a loose Sabine on the kid, and then she just sort of grew into it.
That works.
But Axel, finding a jumpsuit for a 10-year-old, like jumpsuits are like easy to find if you're a grown painter man or a baby. But like if you're looking for like a kid jumpsuit and orange and all, like we couldn't find anything. And I ended up like I think we went through like 4 jumpsuits before he was 12. And then he started growing like a lot. And then we switched to like season 3. And like I've remade the cadet. I'm on my 3rd cadet shirt because he keeps outgrowing his cadets. But it's also like one of the easier ones that like, hey dude, just get a shirt and pants. because we used to have him in a jumpsuit, and we'd go to like cons, and he'd be like, "I have to go to the bathroom." Okay, let's go. This is a whole fiasco. And recently, like he would tell me, like, remember when we were at the cons and I used to have to go to the bathroom? It was cold. Thank you for that information, sir. I understand. Like, but yeah, cosplaying with kids, that's definitely like the biggest thing. Yeah, is just them outgrowing it.
Okay, here's a question to kind of put you on the spot. If you had to assign your kids roles in the Bad Batch based on their personalities, who would they be?
Okay, we've done this already. Axel is Wrecker. Lizzie's Tech. I'm Hunter. And I guess my wife is Echo now instead of Crosshair.
Sure.
So the wife, yeah. So we're switching Echo out. We're going with the new Bad Batch, and that makes our teddy bear Victoria Omega.
I'm still hoping for a Crosshair redemption. So if your wife really wants to be Crosshair,
after that Wrecker episode, like now I'm like a little bit more open to it. I don't know if you guys remember, I was mad at Tam for a whole season. Yeah. And then that finale turned me right around, and I was like, she's the best. So, good times. Good times, Star Wars animation.
Speaking of Crosshair, we didn't see much of him in this episode, but what do you guys think about his injuries? Like, is that going to lead to any like crazy tech enhancements for him, or is he just going to look like Dengar for a few episodes?
First of all, I just love the fact that anytime somebody's injured and wrecked, you're like, hey, is that Dengar? That's what it looks like all the time.
The bandages. I
went through this last week, but like for a split second, even though I know Dengar's been in the Clone Wars, the first time I saw him bandaged up, I was like, oh my God, we're getting Dengar's origins. And then I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, turn that brain off.
In our podcast, it led to that, and then it led to me trying to explain Rothgar Dang to the family.
Oh.
Weird guy in the background, but I don't know. Like, he seemed to be piloting okay. Like, maybe he's just like superficially burned. Maybe he's just gonna have like a cool little like black, like the opposite of Hunter's cool tattoo on his face in the form of a burn scar.
This is still my favorite theory, that he will be like the first and original Death Trooper. But I don't know if it's going to happen.
We've talked about this a little bit, and I also want to point out, I think that, Crosshair should have some scars and burns. I think that there should be consequences for what he did. Try to incinerate his family, like this lasting memory, even though, it's not him. He can't control it.
Right.
Oh, man, he's going to be physically and emotionally scarred.
Yeah.
If he makes a comeback.
Like,
I still hope he does.
I'm coloring up my like bad Lilo, because I'm like that dude roasted like a marshmallow, and it was funny to me.
I was shocked last week when they did that. Like, that was brutal. And I don't know, so many people just assume animation, it's for kids, and it's definitely kid accessible, but this is not going through that Rebels season 1, Resistance, Clone Wars seasons 1 and 2, where it's like very kid centric and it kind of grows up. They're like, no, we know Clone Wars fans are going to be watching this, and so it's just like they just dove in. Yeah. I just love how much it I don't know. They're just doing such a good job with the show right now. I'm happy. I agree. I'm very happy too. Before we dive into some chat questions, I'll just say, I've said this before, but because you're such a Rebels fan, I really credit that show, because that was my first animated Star Wars show. I did not grow up with the Clone Wars, but watching Rebels really changed my view on a lot of things, because I was very much like, those Star Wars cartoons probably aren't for me. I don't think I'll like them, but I'll give Rebels a shot. And God, it quickly won me over and just made me immediately think no, all of this stuff has value and it's worth a shot, even if it's not made for me. So I'm just I can't imagine a world where I weren't watching the Bad Batch right now. I'd be so sad if I just never gave animation a shot.
Right,
Yeah.
right. If you were like, well, I gotta wait till December for like Book of Boba, like I'm over here having fun, so you enjoy your wait, sir.
Exactly.
Mm.
Let's dive into some questions here. Lindsay Brown, thank you so much for the first super chat of the day. Does Omega count as an augmented clone? If not, who could be the fifth one? So I do think she is the fifth one that they were talking about in that first episode. But yeah, it's still unclear if she has augmentations other than just being special, like the Omega to Boba's Alpha.
Right.
Yeah, and she definitely doesn't know that she's any different because she was asking Hunter like, how am I special? Like, why do they want me back so badly? So she has no idea.
And that's like a really cool, like, the way that especially after the Fennec thing, they thought that the bounty hunters were after them. So like finally understanding when Cad Bane takes Omega that like, oh, they're after her. They don't even care about us, except Crosshair.
Yeah.
They'll shoot us in the face, but that's just Crosshair.
Yeah, they're really just like adding to the list of people who are chasing them around. But
yeah,
do you think that's it? Like, I'm on board and I'm okay if she is literally just like an exact copy of Jango Fett,
right?
But female. But do you think there's more to her? Is she enhanced and we just don't know it yet?
Is it was cut, right? Who's like, the Kaminoans don't create anything without a purpose. So
right.
Like, we still don't know what that purpose is. And even if that purpose is just like, hey, hold this DNA for a while, like maybe, you know what I mean? Like, that could be it, I guess. But they want her back because of that DNA, which I guess like makes her like special, or that's what they want it for. It doesn't seem to be for any powers or utilization of whatever they think makes her unique. And then I get like tied up in, you know, Star Wars science. They're like, she's an exact replica, just like Boba. And I'm like, okay, like, but she's a girl, and like, okay, like I'm not clearly I'm not a geneticist.
She's a girl and she's blonde.
I think there's more to know. Tech probably knows it and read it and didn't share it all.
Yeah.
He had that little pad out and he was like, she's an exact replica. And he read like a bunch of other stuff and he was like, they don't need to know that now.
They can get the summary. I do like the weird thing that like, oh, the clone was named Alpha before being renamed Boba. I don't know. That was just kind of cool.
I liked that. Yeah.
Like it was
like
just
Alpha and Omega.
Name.
Sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were wondering if there were all the other letters of the Greek alphabet in between the two of them. I don't think so. That's a lot.
I don't think there are 24 others.
Yeah. Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, Kappa, all of them. I like if Omega and Alpha, like that kind of makes them brother and sister. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
If they expanded on that story in another show, maybe in December, I don't know. that would be kind of interesting. Like, not something I would have seen coming, but something that if it popped up, you'd be like, Remember that cartoon y'all didn't want to watch? Just saying. Mind my business.
I wonder how they would do that. I wonder if they would just do it and be like, hey, losers, watch The Bad Batch. Why didn't you watch it? Like, go catch up. Or how they would work it into the story and explain it efficiently.
I mean,
because that's a lot to drop on someone who didn't watch The Bad Batch. Be like, this is Boba Fett's sister clone.
Yeah.
Kind of, like.
But I think like sometimes like we know all of this stuff and we're like, wow, like how would you ever explain? Like, but if you look at like, just take The Mandalorian for an example. Like, they brought Bo-Katan, and all they said was like, I'm the heir. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine not knowing who Luke Skywalker was and watching that episode and being like, wow, some crazy mystical guy just came here and saved us and left. Like, we know who likes Luke Skywalker is, and we add all that weight.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahsoka Tano, same thing. Like, they didn't explain her backstory. She just showed up. She did the thing. You know, it's as simple as being like, we were the original clones. Like, it's probably enough explanation.
And
then all of us would be like, this is so awesome, remember, in Bad Batch. And everybody else would be like, excuse me, sir? I'd be like, I'm still yelling about the cartoon. That is amazing.
I saw someone earlier in chat suggest Frankie Adams to play Omega, and I kind of love that. She plays Bobby Draper in The Expanse. She is Samoan, I believe, and she is just like jacked. She's awesome in that show, and I would love to see grown up Omega just like kicking ass with Boba Fett, her brother.
Like
that would go well with my theory that when and if we see her all grown up, she's gonna be like Wrecker jacked. She's gonna have Wrecker's helmet because she loves Wrecker to death. And
her other brother.
It's gonna be just like,
Oh man, that's reminding me of is it Numa, the Twilight girl from Clone Wars that has some of Waxer or Boyle's armor.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
I see people talking in chat about her blonde hair. I think it's fine. It's a fine possibility that a sibling of Boba Fett could come out blonde. I don't think there's anything to that. No one's dyeing her hair.
Maybe.
I mean, Rex had blonde hair for a little while, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like
he dyed it, but yeah.
Every couple of 100 clones they churn out, there might be a blonde one in there.
A little recessive gene, yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Spaceballs, thanks for your question. Any chance of Delta Squad appearing in the Camino Uprising? Man, Delta Squad's so weird to me in the canon right now because they made them canon. They made that decision. George Lucas liked them in Republic Commando and was like, yeah, throw them in the show. But also, the Bad Batch feels like they're kind of taking their spot.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them again, though.
They look cool.
Yeah.
And if all of this is going to some sort of like Camino showdown / rebel, like if that's like an end game, like, I mean, it would be a cool place to see him. But then you would have, I don't care about the extra stuff. Like they literally showed up and delivered a dead body and were like, peace.
Right.
And I was like, that was cool. Like, because once like that happens, everybody's like, where's their new books and video games? I'm like, look, I'm not going to turn down a book and a video game. You know who you're talking to, but at the same time, like it would be, even if I just see him again, that's cool.
Yeah. Like if they were to make another game like Republic Commando, I kind of think they just use the Bad Batch. It reminds me a lot of in Battlefront 2015, they put Shadow Troopers in there, like the black armored stormtroopers. And then a year later, Death Troopers came out, and we've never seen Shadow Troopers again. I kind of think that if they had, I don't think they would have introduced Shadow Troopers if they knew that Death Troopers were coming.
Right. And even Battlefront 2, like they would change it out. Like they would have like Death Troopers, and then like when Episode 9 came out, like it was like, oh, the like you know, the cool class is now a Sith Trooper instead. You know, so they still like do those kinds of like upgrades and stuff in the video game.
If Delta Squad ever pops up again, I think it will be just like another cameo. I don't see them competing for space with the Bad Batch.
Right. But even to be fair, like any like that's the one thing about Star Wars. It's so broad. Like you could just make it. You could just give them a whole book series if you wanted to. You know what I mean, or whatever.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know, nobody would bat an eye, and I'd buy 2.
Let's see. Moving on to another super chat. Star Wars 345 paper. Tanwi had the same voice actress. Oh yeah, did she? I forgot to check. Sounded the same.
It sounded the same.
I didn't think to look either.
She was like I went to one of the premieres, and she was there, and she had like her little toy with her, you know, because people were like, oh, like you know, like I guess you know, like she was walking the carpet. She was like, by the way, I'm Tanwi. Like this is my toy. And I was like, dude, that is awesome. I was like, I was trying to tell Axel.
I would absolutely do that if I were in Star Wars. Look at this was me.
I
don't.
For sure.
I don't look like it was me.
Look, I was in the I was a cartoon though. That was me.
I would carry it everywhere.
Yeah.
I did have like this sad flash, just this image run through my head of them calling her up, be like, "We need you for Tanwi," and she's like, "I'm back," and then 2 episodes later, they just kill her.
But she's like, we don't have to dwell on the negative. We can be like, look, Tanwi was back.
Yeah.
You made it. Congratulations. 2 Star Wars properties.
And everyone got excited. Maybe she is like Finnick, you know? We thought Finnick was dead.
Tom comes back with the robo tummy.
Yeah. Tanwee's probably fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like ruling over Ghost Camino, the Skyloft of Camino.
Dr. Holocron, thanks for the super chat. Cad Bane having grudges against both Boba Fett and Finnick makes him the perfect villain for Book of Boba Fett. That's a good point.
That's correct. That's cool.
And if they just keep leaning into that Western stuff, yeah, do it.
The music, dude, is so fire.
Yeah.
Like that last episode when Cad Bane came out, Axel kept going like, why he wasn't this cool in Clone? Like, why is he so cool? I'm like, it's not him. He's the same. It's the music, dude. Like the music. Like, he walked out and they hit you with the like up pan and they're like, cha-cha-chang. Like it was perfect.
I saw someone. I think this was last week when Cad Bane came back, and it was like Cad Bane comes on screen and Kevin Kiner, and it was that GIF from The Road to El Dorado where they're just like strumming on the guitar really hard. Like, yeah, that feels right.
Yeah. Knocked it out of the park again. I love, like, and Kiner does it so well, like, when they just swing from the fences and just, hey, dude, this is like, we're going to do. We're going to go cowboy. We're going to go cowboy. Like, we're going to do it all the way. Like, and I love.
No mistaking. That is 2 gunslingers about to stand off.
I love when Star Wars isn't afraid to, like, do what it wants and, like, not, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, just be bold and have no fear.
I mean, yeah, Kevin Kiner's always done that. Every time we watch the Clone Wars movie for the Schmodown, the part where the ATTEs are climbing up the Teth wall, and it's just like straight up techno
weird
music.
techno music,
and I'm like,
this there's like guitar, and then you're like, oh, this is the first time guitar, except for the like wheel in episode 2. But yeah, I'm like kind of a music guy too, so I like love those kinds of things. But there's an episode in season 1 where R2 is lost, and they're like on that Trandoshan's ship, and they fight the IG droids, and it's like super techno, like, and it's like I'm like, every time I watch that episode, I'm like, I always forget about how like techno-y this episode is.
We've got to introduce you to Star Wars Music Minute. It's a podcast that's going through all of the Star Wars music. They're in the chat, so
nice.
But I think you guys would have fun talking.
I love Star Wars and music and minutes. It's my jam.
Brett Baumler, thank you for the question. Do you think Omega might eventually take her own name and perhaps the Fett family name?
I mean, does she have any connection with them?
I don't think she sees herself as a Fett. I love the idea that she's like Omega
that is super
Fett.
Cool.
That's a cool name. But
that is dope. When you say it together like that, I want to change my answer. Sir, that is not my final answer. I'd like to change now.
It's a good name, but is it her name? I don't know.
Yeah. Boba, like that connection is so strong because he raised Boba. Like, even Boba doesn't like the other clone. You know, like when they're like, we're brothers, and he's like, no, I'm not. Like, and then he shoots him. Little jerk teenage Fett.
I do like how just so far this show has shown Omega, and she's kind of been slowly learning how to be herself and also be part of the Bad Batch and like figure out how she can help and just like be one of them essentially. But this episode brought us all the way back. There we have that scene where she is in that room with those big vats of like who knows what green scary abandoned failed clones, I want to say. And there's a scene where she's looking into one, and it's basically like she sees her reflection. It's like a mirror.
Right.
And it's just like, that breaks my heart. Because like she says later, like, I don't want to end up an experiment in a tube.
Yeah.
And she's just like right back to that mindset of like, I don't want to be hooked up to your machines. Like,
and
she's going through the bumpy ride.
She says that way, like in the first or second episode. Remember, she's like, I don't like being hooked up to the machines either. Like,
oh yeah.
Is it Hunter? Oh, like Echo gets knocked out. Somebody gets knocked out. I think it's Echo.
Yeah.
It was Echo, yeah. They did a really great job this episode of like setting up these stakes of not taking Omega back to Camino, which of course were like, and Hunter's promise, you'll never go back to Camino. I'm like, oh god, they're going back to Camino. But I guess this in my review. Hopeful, it's more hope. I think that I really want Omega to wind up making the choice to go back herself. I think that would be nice if they're like, Crosshair needs help, and like if the Bad Batch, all the guys are like, we want to go back and help, and she's like, I'm coming with you. I think it would be nice if she faced that fear and was like, let's go, let's do this. I'm in. I'm not going to leave you now.
Right. Because at the end of this episode,
her being captured again.
Yeah. At the end of this episode, when Hunter is like promising to her that she'll never end up back on Camino, I was like, oh, that seems like an empty promise, but I don't know. We'll see.
I don't like this, Mr. Star Wars.
Yeah. But you're right, Alice. It would be really cool if she were the one that was like, okay, you know what? We have to go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a little bit of a like, I'll see you again, I promise,
Yeah.
Thing. Kanan quote.
Or like maybe it'll be even something where she insists, where they're like, well, Crosshair needs help, but we're not going to take you back there. And she's like, nah, we're going. Let's do this. I like that idea. I just don't. I mostly don't want to see her get in like this cycle of being, oh well, she got captured again and she escaped again and she got captured again. Because I thought that they handled her capture so well. The fact that the Bad Batch didn't really do much at all. They just showed up to capture at the end. Yeah, she did everything, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, with a little help from Fennec, but yeah, she did. She took off in that little pod, and she like fought off Toto 360, much to Axel's disappointment. Yeah.
Oh, you know what we haven't talked about yet? How gross it was that she just dumped a dead or unfinished clone on Fennec. I was like, that's grim.
Well, Fennec cracked the case by kicking Toto into it, and then Omega was over on the computer, just like boop, and it like released the pod, and that's like when it fell. But yeah, that was gross.
Yeah. And then like just when you were like, they showed Fennec like pushing the body, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, it looks like a Roswell alien, like a real
alien.
Yeah.
How does xenomorph?
Or like someone earlier said, it looked like the aliens from Crystal Skull.
Kind of.
Indiana Jones.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that other Lucasfilm property.
Yeah.
What's up, Brad?
What's up to Red Team Review? We kind of addressed this earlier, but assuming that the Omega is the last of Jango's unaltered clones, began with Boba and ends with her, I think that's the case, and I think they were probably the only two.
Yeah, they kind of say that they were like the two. They say like Boba, the other one, we're not going to get back. We haven't seen him since the beginning of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's BS? I think that's BS. I'm just like, well,
that's just what Tech had.
Okay.
You think that's that hard to track down? He's not keeping a low profile. He's running around with Asajj Ventress and Bosk and Highsinger and like just call someone, hire a bounty hunter and then trap him. But I think
Cad Bane knows him.
Yeah, they're probably like, he's too much trouble, and we'll go after Omega instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that says a lot, dude. Like, it's so much easier to get Omega from these 5 guys than to get Boba himself.
I want to say, like, why can't you just call them up and be like, hey, we'll pay you to get your DNA?
Like, we will give you the same deal we gave your father.
I do wonder.
Dona. Careful, princess.
Do you think he holds a grudge against the Kaminoans now?
I don't know. Like, but it's clear he's not happy with, like, he's like, Jango's my father, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I owe my allegiance to no one. Not Mandalore, not Camino, apparently. They ain't seen him at the beginning of the war, I heard, but that might be just a Wikipedia page tech read.
I love that. The text just accessing Wikipedia.
Yeah. It's like also Starlight Beacon is something happening there.
Have you guys been reading the High Republic?
Mm-hmm. There's going to be a fair soon.
I've got a bad feeling about that.
Uh-huh.
Thorough Unfiction, thank you for the super chat. Like, who should be cast for older Omega in the Book of Boba Fett? Maybe Jennifer Lawrence. I don't think Jennifer Lawrence. I'm on board with Frankie Adams. I think that's good casting.
Yeah, or the what I forget her name, the woman that voices her. I mean, slap a blonde wig on her.
Well, she's Kiwi, but she is not Maori. So it's like anytime you start, but that is interesting though, because I feel like a lot of the times more recently they have been casting for voice and live action.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's like a hint that she
Michelle
won't.
Yang, thank you.
Yes.
There you go, yeah.
I think they would probably cast a Maori actress to play Omega, adult Omega.
Mm-hmm. Like, and in theory, one that had a really good resemblance to like, you know, like I would hope.
Or, I mean, how do you argue with that?
Case closed. Like, that's it. Like, everybody go home. We got this. Season 2 of Book of Boba Fett is Book of Omega Fett, and it's Tamina Wynn. I love it. Approved. Where do I sign?
I keep saying about like Mando season 3 or I guess even Book of Boba. They have Tamir Morrison. I just want to see like a random clone somewhere running his own bar, like tell a story. Like maybe it's cut. Maybe they run into him or like, I don't know. Just like they have Tamir Morrison. Throw another clone in the story and have him just like say, oh yeah, clones.
Put him in armor. Make him do stuff.
He hit the jackpot. He can be like anywhere, do anything. He can play 1 billion characters in the Star Wars universe. Or I guess 1.2 million, but
with 1 million more well on the way. You can have him show up in like with Sedana Thano, the animated series or the real life series. Like, hey, I'm like defrosted kicks and I am here and ready to heal because that's what heroes do. That'd be cool.
Interesting.
Chris Pacetto, thanks for the question. Does the news about Omega mean that she's actually 10 years old without accelerated aging? I think she's the same age as Boba Fett right now.
Yeah. Which is what is like 14, 15? Because we're like 4 years.
I think 13.
13, 14. 13.
Maybe approaching 14.
Yeah. That seems right. Because she's really smart and she catches on to stuff really quick, but she's just like, she doesn't know about the world. She's still learning about everything that's going on around her.
Sifo Dyas made the order for the clones about 10 years before Attack of the Clones. And then you add the Clone Wars, which is 3 years, so it should be 13.
Yeah. I was constantly going like, how is Boba 13? Like, he's grown, he's bald, he has new armor. Until my son turned 13 and is now taller than me. I'm like, okay, I guess that's fine then. Sure.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
I mean, like, I would agree that a lot of people in the chat are saying that they think she looks younger. I do agree with that, but like Star Wars doesn't super care about or pay attention to age. Like Bo-Katan, I think, is supposed to be in her 20s in the Clone Wars.
Right.
And now it's been kind of like when we talked to Katie Sackhoff, she was saying, yeah, me and Dave had that talk and we basically said that, oh, she must have been in her late teens during the Clone Wars. And it's just, you know.
But then, like, the other thing,
got those good genes.
Yeah. People are like, oh, but she's supposed to be like 50 years old. And I'm like, yeah, but I think the actress is like that age anyway. So, like, there's no shenanigans. She is she just looks like this and is amazing.
I think Katie Sackhoff just turned 40. And my reasoning was she wears a helmet a lot of the time, so she's not getting any kind of sun damage to the skin. She just looks good.
Yeah, well protected. Like that, there's like a little button in the like T visor, and it like exfoliates. Like
Yeah.
Constant avocado mask.
I am not predictable. How dare you? I talk
Hurry,
about
think
the
of
same
another
like
example.
5 characters over and over again.
Dr. Holocron, thanks for your super chat. I'm hoping they get Crosshair's chip out by the end of the season. He's been kind of a one-dimensional villain, and I want him to be more developed. Yeah.
I agree.
It's like getting a little heartbreaking. Like I said, especially after the Wrecker thing, you're like,
Yeah.
like so. But like I said, I can still be mad at Crosshair and not be upset at it. I'm like, no, he's still the enemy. Go ahead, shoot him. I don't. You know.
I mean,
but they're
I think
like, he can't help it.
it's a really interesting thing to explore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what they did with Bucky and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where like he did a bunch of terrible things that were not his choices.
Right. And he does the same kind of thing, like, because Wrecker says it too. He's like, I couldn't stop it or whatever. And that's even more heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like when the Winter Soldier's like, I remember everyone or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was trying to explain this to my daughter. I was like, he's the Winter Soldier. And she was like, no, because the Winter Soldier is cute. And I'm like, that's not like you're ruining the analogy, child. Like, this is not fair. Like, just because you don't find Crosshair attractive doesn't mean he's not a tragic figure.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done a lot to show that the chip is like, you cannot fight it. The chip is in control. Omega has said multiple times, it's not your fault. I want him to be able to come back from this despite doing really bad things.
Yeah. And Omega, Omega having the understanding, like even before it happens, like he dropped all those little, like, I know you can't help it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, because I'm like, yeah, he can. He just don't. But then
that's I could see her maybe even being the one that saves him somehow. Like if the rest of the Bad Batch think that he's too far gone, and she's the only one that, well, Wrecker should understand. But
or Rex. Oh, well, I guess he wouldn't be there in theory, maybe.
Yeah.
I really like the way that they played it in those Kanan comics, where it's like they can't stop it, but they also sort of were like fighting against, because they're kind of like every time he's around, they're like hunting and they're doing the thing, and then they, it would be silent. They'd be on the ship, and Gray and Sal's were like, yeah, but it was like weird. Like I couldn't think of anything else. Wasn't it weird? Yeah, but we just follow orders. And they started like questioning it a little bit, but they had that time to like live with it, and they weren't being put in that like make you crazy machine like the Kaminoans are doing.
I think that's the only time so far we've seen someone break out of the spell.
Right.
I think it was Gray, where Kanan was like, he just explained the situation to him, and he was like, "Oh my God, you're right." And
that makes so much sense.
That scene, yeah.
It's
so I wonder if they're ever going to play with that anymore, because I was kind of hoping Omega would do that for Wrecker, but that didn't happen.
Like this is kind of the other side to it too. Like every time we think of like, oh, the survivors of Order 66, like we always think about Jedi, but what about the clones? Like this is like when the show started and it became this instantly, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like to see how this happens, and like, because they're kind of like, they're like the Jedi. They were being used. They don't have a choice. And they were like, but they're like under this weird spell, for lack of a better storytelling word. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think 2 weeks ago I said that, that was 2 weeks ago, Wrecker's little incident. I was a little bit bummed that there wasn't more consequence for that, but I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense if it was just about getting Wrecker that experience. So that maybe he's the one to save Crosshair down the line and have the understanding. I mean, the guy who's just supposed to be the big muscle and nothing more, if he's the one that has that insight and is able to save his brother, that's really nice.
That would be cool.
Because none of the others had their chip go off.
Right, have been through it the way that he has,
Because no one's going to expect Wrecker to be the one to like calmly talk Crosshair down.
Right.
Yeah. Aw.
He goes to Crosshair and he's like, first things first, don't hit your head 15 times an episode.
Yeah.
That was my mistake. Every time I'm watching, he has the headaches and you're like, oh, And they pull on it for 3 or 4 episodes. And every episode, they hit him in the head. He got shot every episode. You're like, leave Wrecker alone.
Yeah.
Man,
I was definitely like, please stop hurting him.
We did theorize briefly that we thought maybe when they say out loud the line, good soldiers follow orders, that's the chip just like kicking into high gear. Like if they're about to try to break out the spell, the chip goes off and it's like, you're saying this right now, and it kind of starts them over on a loop. Yeah.
We need to like go back and find every time that line comes up, but I think that a lot of times it's in a moment of kind of duress, like when Tup's chip goes off in season 6 of the Clone Wars, and he just starts to turn his blaster on his Jedi, and he's like, "Good soldiers follow orders." Like I can see that being a thing where he is like, "What am I doing? I know this is wrong," and the chip's like, "Good soldiers follow orders. Do it." And Wrecker repeats the line as he's pointing his blaster at Omega. Crosshair obviously repeats it a lot, so. Yeah, I think that could be some sort of signal that the clone knows that this is wrong and they're fighting it. But the chip is like, no, we have you.
Exert itself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah. Dwarf King 01, thanks for the question. Did Jango know about Omega, or that there was a clone like her at least?
Be interesting if he did. I doubt that
guess
he does.
No. Yeah.
I mean, either way, he didn't raise her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like the only thing they ever talk about is like he requested one thing. He requested a son, an unaltered, perfect genetic. Remember Tonwi?
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. So like we know that he requested the son. Maybe they just had made 2 of them and they were like, here you go.
They saw how Boba Fett turned out and they're like, maybe we'll make ourselves one of those. Just see what happens.
Okay. I think at some point Lama Su called Omega Nala Se's like little project. So maybe she just made Omega on her own.
Or maybe they were like I kind of like, I mean, nothing's been explained, but I just envision it as a pair since it's Alpha and Omega. Like that sounds like they were made as a pair.
Right.
I wonder if like he took Alpha and Nala Se is the one who's like, okay, well I will, and he trained her as a medical assistant or what, like to keep her close to her, you know, or something like. So she kind of, because she's kind of acting like a mother right now, in a weird way.
To me, the Alpha Omega name designations, it feels like bookends. Like Boba was the first not
altered
clone, and Omega was the last one, and it perfectly bookends just the clone army.
Yeah, so maybe they weren't made at the same time, and maybe Nala Se just did that on her own. I like the idea of them being a pair, though.
I mean, either way, like sounds cool, but it's just like Jango doesn't seem to know anything about Omega. Of course, we don't know anything about them until now, so that's how Star Wars works sometimes. And then all of a sudden, they're all talking about, and all of a sudden you have comics where Leia's like, "Hey, have you guys ever heard of Starlight Beacon? This is a thing that I've known about for a long time and am now currently bringing up in comics."
Yeah.
She's got like the words written on her hand. She's like, "Have you heard of Starlight Beacon?"
Happened a long time ago in the high
line.
Yeah, right about 200 years ish. Yeah.
Star Wars 345 paper. Thanks for another super chat. Morrison's late sister had blonde hair. Yeah, I mean that goes with our theory that you can have a recessive blonde hair gene.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
There's some blonde fat DNA. That's what that's called.
Or GNA.
Right. I said before I was not a geneticist. You guys remember this, right? Roll tape on that. I'm not a doctor.
Brett Baumler, thanks for your super chat. I think Nala feels bad about fives, so she's undermining Camino and the Empire to free the clones later on. I would be surprised if she cared about the other clones.
She
seemed
seem empathetic at all back then.
It would, yeah, it would be nice if she developed a conscience since then. I kind of think, yeah, it's just a personal thing related to Omega, that she grew attached to Omega.
Yeah,
But
it does seem personal.
She does give off very like mom vibes. She's like, I don't just want to keep her safe.
Mm-hmm.
how much do you think Lama Su knows? I like every time I go to say a Kaminoan name, I have to stop and think about which one I'm talking about. How much do you think Lama Su knows about Nala Se's messing around? Because he said, like, he said something in the episode about your meddling has already cost us a lot,
like
on this project, and
I think he knows she's the one who let them out. Because I've been going over it since the first episode. Like, why did she open the garage door, y'all? Like, why? Like, she opened the garage door. She literally let her out, and then they're all crying that, oh, we need her back. So that was like one of my like red flags in episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if like that's what Lama Su is referring to. Like, hey, she would have been here safe if you and those kids, you know. Those 10-year-olds that are grown and wrecking things.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't seem that upset about it if he knows that she let them go, but Crosshair was you know, shooting at them. So that may have been like a necessary something that Nala Se could have been like, I had to, because Crosshair was going to kill her.
Yeah. And at the time,
we do need her.
It might be one of those like evolving situations. Like, this is the safest thing for the, to go off with them. Otherwise the Empire is going to get rid of her here. Like, cause that seemed like what it was at the time. At least that's what I thought. Oh, the Empire doesn't care about anybody. They want to get rid of the clone. So maybe they're like letting her go off and escape. That way she'll be safe with whatever. And now we know that it didn't have a whole lot to do with the Empire. That now she seems like she just really wants to protect the little Omega, our little Omega.
I don't think Nala Se is going to make it too much longer.
Yeah.
In the series, I think her time is coming up, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I also don't think. I think she's like Fives who.
Yeah. Yeah. Chat was talking about there aren't any clones with red hair. According to Wikipedia, Cut LaQuaine dyed his hair red, and I assume continues to do so. So
there you go.
I'll take a bottle red.
Cut just has to be special in every way.
I'm on my own now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be different.
My
I also like that everyone's talking about the Greek alphabet, and it's weird that there's Greek in the Star Wars galaxy at all.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
It's been in there for a while. We had our Lambda class shuttles, our Deltas, our Thetas. They've always been around, so I guess I'm just used to it.
We'll just wait for the like Greekabesh or whatever to like hit on Wikipedia.
I saw someone bring it up, but yeah, Tianese. Let me see if I can find it. That's what Greek is called in Star Wars.
Oh, I don't know what that's from.
I don't either.
Mr. Star Wars explained.
Got it.
That is news to me.
Molly, I don't like this new gotcha trend you've been.
I'm sorry. I need a button or like a trumpet or something. Just like anytime someone catches you.
It's me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's get one of those. That works for everything. We have
got another super chat from Brett Baumler. Just imagining Omega Fett in modified clone armor wielding her light bow. Make it happen in Book of Boba Fett, Robert Rodriguez. Yes. Everyone start writing letters.
Yeah.
Let's make this happen.
Yeah, I'm from Texas, so we love us some Robert Rodriguez in Texas. So when it was said that he was doing an episode, I was like, and then when the episode came out, I was like, that makes sense. Everybody, we all agree. Yeah. Texas Council has approved this decision. When they announced Book of Boba Fett, I was like, dude, that's really, really cool. I can't wait to see more Boba Fett. But I was like, you're not going to get that same fire without him, dude. Also, Robert Rodriguez is okay, Texas Council approved.
Ming-Na Wen in an interview this past week just called him the showrunner. So like he's overseeing the whole series. That's fantastic. I'm really bad at anytime someone says, "Hey, who would you cast as this person?" or what director do you want in Star Wars? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just bad at thinking up people on the spot. But there's always people that when their names are said, I'm just like, yes. And when they said Robert Rodriguez was doing an episode of The Mandalorian, I was like, this is perfect. I love Robert Rodriguez for Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah, I only know so much, and then they all do. So who would you want to direct Star Wars? Oh, they already made one. I only know Star Wars people.
Well, I only watch Star Wars movies, so I guess George Lucas again.
Cool. Give him one. See how he does.
Yeah.
Let's come full circle with this. Good stuff.
I'm just
Texas Council approved. Nope. Other hand. Other hand in the shot.
Let's wrap up with Star Wars Music Minute. Just another question, but real quick, this might not please some people, but do you think Palpatine is going to clamp down on the Kaminoans in this show because they have some stuff to hold over his head as a last resort? Yes, I do think.
Yeah,
I really think we're heading towards a Kamino or clone uprising, and there's a reason we don't see Kaminoans in the original trilogy. There's a reason they're struggling to clone in The Mandalorian and beyond.
I mean, it almost feels like a Tarkin, like, yeah, that's probably the real reason, but like the executed thing is going to be like, well, Tarkin has decided that your planet is more trouble than it's worth, and now we are destroying you all, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's what's going to happen, but then you get the scene somewhere where he's like, hey, now my secrets are safe. Meanwhile, underground in the Jedi Temple, or the Sith Temple that's underneath the Jedi Temple.
Right.
That role,
But doesn't that feel just so imperial to be like, oh, you're going to defy us? I'm going to wipe you out. And then 20 years later be like, oh, crap, I really need them.
You know what I could use, man? I got this idea for a Sinoke.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what it stands for. Yeah.
Skywalker. I don't know what the N is. O is for Omega.
Nala Say.
Nala Say is official.
Kaminoan
experiment. We got it.
Yeah.
Nope.
That's good.
I've been reading some Afro comics. So I love watching like episodes of The Bad Batch and talking, being like, clones are not financially viable and we can get Seneca conscriptors. And then going through the Afro comics, we're like, look at all these Tarkin Initiative rejects. So he's like, we're trying to save money. Also, can you build me cyborg buff huts? And like weird like cylinder guys with smart Imperial heads on them? Can we get on that? Can we devote some resources this way?
I love the Afro comics. They're so weird.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Well, now that I've
weird
read
in the best way.
Now that I've read Star Wars Music Minutes, super chat. Thank you, Star Wars Music Minute. But what are the 9 ruling Chiss families? Bodil, Chaffklar, Dasklo, Arizi Myth, Abik, Plick, Ufsa. Nope, I skipped one. I skipped one, Molly. I'm only on 8. Stop hitting that. Bodil, Dasklo.
I forgot I had this app.
Bodil, Chaffklar, Dasklo, Arizi Myth, Abik, Plick, Ufsa. There we go. Okay. I think I just counted wrong.
I can't wait to remember to hopefully use that again.
I go back to that like title page. I'm like reading the book and I'm like, okay, the Arizi, easy. Okay. And the Ufsa.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah.
They've been asking me. We do our like Lego live streams, and every Wednesday they've been asking me until I get it right. And I think I got them now. I got them.
You've been like working on it, like Patriel. He's the Patriel now.
It's been like 6 weeks, but I think I finally did it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
And every time I don't have a way to check your work, I'm just like, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Alex he's just building Legos, and he's like, every time you ask me the 9 ruling members of the families, I become more powerful than you possibly imagine.
Yes.
Okay, well that's a
Untitled.
good dumb way to end this stream. Thank you all so much for hanging out and watching with us and sending in your super chats and questions. Sal, thank you for joining us. Where can people follow you and listen to you and watch you online?
You can check us out at the Rogue Rebels podcast. We do everything, like we talk about shows and books and comics and everything under the sun. You can check us out at theroguerebels.com, where we do the same thing. And let's see, you can check us out on Instagram and TikTok at The Rogue Rebels, and where you can tweet at us at Rogue Rebels Fam. That's got to be it.
Put in the chat. Put a link in the chat for all those links.
And they're in the description as well. So yeah, thank you again, Sal. Thank you again, everyone watching. We're gonna wrap up, and we'll be back on Wednesday for another Lego live stream, and then we'll be back next Friday for another Clone Zone. But thank you all again for hanging out and watching, and may the Force be with you.
Nope, other hand.